Eleanor noticed it first at night. Not movement. Not noise. Distance. The hallway didn't feel as long as it had that morning. The living room sat closer to the kitchen, as if the house had quietly leaned in while she slept. She told herself it was fatigue. House is settled. People imagine things. But then the chair across from her at the table moved. Not dragged. Not pushed. Just closer. She didn't touch it. The lights flickered once, like acknowledgement. That was when Eleanor understood something the house had been learning for years. It wasn't trying to make her leave. It was waiting to see how much space she was willing to give up. And she didn't realize she had already started. You're listening to CHF Cinematic Horror Files. Stories hidden in the dark. These are stories taken from the quiet corners of America, where ordinary lives drift just far enough of course to disappear. They're told slowly, without spectacle, and without easy answers. If you're drawn to stories like this, subscribe to the channel. And if anything you hear tonight reminds you of a place you stayed too long, leave a comment. Some stories don't end when the door closes. They wait. Every December, Eleanor kept the lights on. Not because she was festive. Not because she believed in tradition the way people talked about it in commercials. She kept the lights on because darkness made the house feel larger than it should have been. The neighbors noticed, of course. They always did. The small bungalow at the end of Hawthorne Street glowed every night through Christmas week warm bulbs outlined those. The porch rail, the thin eaves that creaked when the wind picked up. No inflatable decorations. No music, just light, constant and quiet. Eleanor had lived there for 32 years, long enough to outlast generations of neighbors. Long enough for the house to remember her shape. She used to decorate with intention a wreath on the door. Candles in the window. A tree in the living room that leaned slightly left no matter how carefully it was placed. But that was before the house became what it was now, before the rooms learned to hold their breath. This year, she didn't bother with ornaments. She put the lights up alone, her fingers stiff from the cold, moving carefully along the porch railing. When she finished, she stood in the yard for a moment, looking back at the house as if she expected it to respond. It didn't. Inside, the air felt settled, not cold, not warm, just present. The kind of stillness that forms when nothing has moved in a while, but nothing is gone either. Eleanor hung her coat on the same hook she'd used for decades and stepped into the kitchen. The calendar on the wall read December 22nd. She hadn't crossed off the days in weeks. She didn't need to. The house told her what day it was. At night, it made small adjustments. The hallway seemed shorter after sunset. The living room felt closer to the kitchen than it had in the morning. Corners softened. Distances blurred. The house wasn't shrinking exactly. It was concentrating. Eleanor had noticed the changes years ago, back when she still expected things to make sense. Her husband Michael had been the first to comment on it. "Does it feel tighter in here?" he asked once, standing in the doorway between the living room and the hall. Eleanor laughed then, told him house is settled. Wood warped that he was imagining things. He didn't argue. Michael stopped noticing things before he stopped coming home altogether. He left one winter morning, with his scarf looped wrong and a look on his face that suggested he had already decided not to return. Eleanor watched him go from the window, her hand resting on the glass, waiting for the cold to register. It didn't. The house absorbed that moment quietly. Their son, Daniel, had been worse. He visited less and less after college, lingering in doorways like he didn't quite fit anymore. When he stayed, he slept on the couch instead of his old room. Said the hallway felt narrow. Said the house made it hard to breathe at night. Eleanor told him he was being dramatic. He stopped visiting after that. The house adjusted again. Now, on Christmas Eve, Eleanor moved through the room slowly, touching things she didn't need to touch. The back of a chair, the edge of the counter, the wall beside the bedroom door where a faint indentation had appeared over the years, as if someone had leaned there for a very long time. She cooked dinner for one and set the table anyway. 2 plates, 2 forks. She did this every year, even though she knew better. The house liked routines. At 6:47 p.m., the lights flickered once. Not a power issue, just acknowledgement. Eleanor sat in the living room afterward, wrapped in a blanket, watching the reflection of the Christmas lights shimmer in the dark television screen. She didn't turn it on. Noise felt intrusive now. The clock on the mantel read 8:12. That was when she heard movement in the back room. Not footsteps. Not exactly. A shift, like furniture adjusting itself when no one was there to do the adjusting. Eleanor closed her eyes. I know, she said aloud, her voice steady. I know. The house responded by settling further. She had learned over time that resistance made things worse. When she tried to move furniture back, it returned to its previous position overnight. When she attempted to sleep in rooms she hadn't used in years, the air grew heavy, uncooperative. The house didn't trap her. It accommodated her. That night, Eleanor dreamed of Christmas mornings long past. Daniel tearing wrapping paper too carefully. Michael pretending not to enjoy the music while humming along anyway. The house larger, then louder, full of echoes that bounced from room to room. She woke before dawn with the sense that someone else was awake too. The kitchen light was on. Eleanor sat up slowly. She hadn't turned it on. She stood in the hallway, wrapped in her robe, and listened. The house was alert, not active, expectant. She walked toward the kitchen. The table was set again. The second plate had been moved slightly closer to the first. The chair across from hers pulled in by a few inches. Eleanor's throat tightened. You don't need to do that, she said quietly. The house didn't argue. She spent Christmas Day inside. No visitors. No calls. Snow fell softly outside, muffling the street. The lights stayed on. As the day wore on, Eleanor noticed the rooms responding more quickly now. When she sat, the space adjusted. When she stood, it waited. The walls felt nearer, but not oppressive. Familiar. Supportive. She found herself thinking about how much effort it had always taken to keep things going, the constant adjustment, the constant leaving and returning, the strain of holding space for people who were always halfway gone. Here, she didn't have to. By evening, the back room, the one she hadn't entered in years, felt unnecessary. She closed the door without thinking. The house accepted the decision. That night, Eleanor slept in the living room. Her blanket folded neatly around her shoulders. She dreamed she was sitting beside someone who matched her shape perfectly. Neither crowding nor distant. When she woke, the sun was already low. December 26th. The calendar had been turned. Eleanor didn't remember doing it. She moved through the house with practiced ease now, navigating the shortened hallways without hesitation. She no longer reached for light switches out of habit. The house kept itself illuminated where she needed it. She didn't leave that day, or the day after. Neighbors noticed the lights were still on. Utilities continued to draw power. Mail accumulated, then stopped when forwarding requests went through automatically. Eleanor's bank account paid its bills. Her email replied with polite delays. Inside, the house became quieter. Rooms she hadn't used in years faded entirely. Not closed off, just irrelevant. The living space compressed into something efficient, purposeful. Eleanor no longer felt the cold. On New Year's Eve, the house adjusted one final time. She was sitting on the floor, her back against the wall, when she felt the space beside her settle. Not a presence, not a body, a completion. Eleanor smiled. No more excess, she whispered. The house agreed. When authorities eventually came months later, prompted by concerned relatives who lived too far away to notice the gradual change, found the bungalow immaculate. Not empty, just complete. The lights were still on. The furniture arranged to suit a single occupant who required very little space. No signs of struggle. No unfinished meals. No personal items left behind. The bedroom was gone. The calendar hung on the kitchen wall, blank after December 26th. There was a faint indentation beside the living room wall, as if something had rested there comfortably for a long time. The house was sold that spring. The new owners said it felt warm, efficient, peaceful. They slept better than they expected. Every Christmas, they leave the lights on. Not because they know why, but because something in the house prefers it that way.